Dear students, welcome to e-learning Samveda class. Students, in the previous class itself I have started the history chapter number 3, that is ancient civilizations of India. In the first part of the chapter we were discussed about the people in ancient India were nomadic in character. Nomadic means the people used to move from one place to another place in search of food, cloth, shelter. Because the people have to protect from wild animals, breeze, that is what we are going to call wind, or maybe to protect from the rain. That is why to protect themselves they have to move from one place to another place. Or to take a shelter. That is why we have discussed. They were digging shallow pits. According to the season, they used to cook the food in the shallow pits, or sometime they used to cook outside the shallow pit. Why they used to cook inside the pit? If there is a rain or if there is a breeze, they have to cook the food inside the shallow pit. If the weather condition is very normal, that time they can cook the food even outside the shallow pit. But it was in the course of time, they found it was very difficult to maintain or keep on moving from one place to another place. That is why the people started to do the agriculture. When they were started to do the agriculture on the river bank, there the civilization started. When they start to do the agriculture on the river bank, their settled life, you called as stable life, or we can call civilization began. Where and all in the beginning the civilization was begun in India or in a greater part of India means we called as Magar. As I told you, the Magar is near the Bolan Pass which leads to the Iran. The another to the Magar, even the civilization which was took place at Harappa. Other than Harappa, even we have discussed the civilization which was took place at Mohenjo-daro. At Mohenjo-daro, we were discussed about the Great Bath also. There we have discussed about town planning, the Great Bath. When we have discussed about the town planning, we have discussed about Harappa. The Harappans developed the city plan, or you can call town plan. There were main roads were very broad, and there were made street roads, and they used to construct the house single story and even two-story houses. And in the house there were the facilities given. Veranda was there, you called as courtyard, and they made even the bedroom. And even you call the restroom, nothing to call toilet, they were made it. And they connected the bathroom with a seepage line. And this seepage line was connected to the main seepage line also. Water was connected or constructed by using stone blocks, or you call stone slabs. In such a way, they made such a beautiful town planning of Harappans. But the civilization not remain even today. There are the causes to decline the Harappan civilization. What were the causes we have discussed to decline the Harappan civilization means? Maybe the Aryans invasion. Second thing we can say, due to natural calamities. What was the natural calamity? We can say the natural calamities may be a flood, maybe a forest fire, or even the people used to dig the earth to make the bricks. Because of these reasons, the Harappan town planning was ruined. Dear students, in today's class, let us go and discuss about Vedas. And even we are going to discuss about different types of Veda. There were 4 types of Veda. And the Vedic culture, nothing but to call Vedic period, the life of the Vedic people. Let us go and discuss one by one. Who compiled the Vedas? Who written the Vedas? Actually, in the beginning, the Veda was not written. In the beginning, the Veda was compiled or transferred from generation to generation orally. Then who compiled the Vedas? The Vedas were compiled by Aryans. Actually, if we come about the word Veda, in Sanskrit, we use the word Vid, which means knowledge. So, Veda means knowledge. Then who these Aryans are? Where they came from, these Aryans? If you go and study, the different sources are giving different information about Aryans. There's a one source says that the Aryans were belongs to the tribal community people. These Aryans were Indo-European tribal community who were lived in southern Russia, Ural mountain. The people who were lived in the southern Russian Ural mountain slopes, from there they came to India. But another source says, no. These people didn't come from southern Russian Ural mountain slopes. Then these people were belongs to Central Asia. The people who were lived in Central Asia and came to the Iran plateau. From the Iran, through the Afghanistan, they came to India and they settled at the place called Punjab. They were called Aryans. So, but one thing we have come to know, these Aryans maybe belongs to the southern Russian Ural mountain slopes or maybe from the Central Asia. But one thing we came to know, these people came from other territory to our territory, from other country to our country. And they were settled people in India and they were compiled the Vedas. Dear students, the Vedic period we identify between 1500 before the Common Era till 700 before the Common Era. This Vedic period also we classified into two Vedic periods. The first Vedic period means there is a Rig Vedic period, or we called as the beginning Vedic period. The Rig Vedic or the beginning Vedic period between 1500 BC to 1000 BC, whereas the later Vedic period, or we called as post-Vedic period, or we can call as post-Rig Vedic period. This post-Rig Vedic period between 1000 BC to 700 BC. But as I told you, these Vedas were not written in the beginning. In the beginning, the Vedas were transferred from mouth to mouth, generation to generation. But in the course of time, with lot of modification, with lot of changes, it came into a written format. Now, let us go and discuss the different 4 types of Vedas. There are 4 types of Vedas. One we called as Rig Veda, another one we called as Samveda, third one we called as Yajurveda, and finally the fourth one we called as Atharva Veda. These Vedic people used to worship the nature. They never used to worship any idols. Not only they worship the nature, even they used to perform yagas, and even black magic. In Kannada we can call black magic. In another name we call mantra mata. And these yagas and black magic we used to call as Samhita. This Samhita has a text called Brahmana. It says the Brahmana used to explain the various ways of performing the rituals. Which are the rituals? It may be yaga, it may be yagas, or it may be black magic. All these rituals will be explained by Brahmana. It has Aranyaka and also going to call an Upanishad. Here the Aranyaka or Upanishad which is related to the Veda, but here we can say whom we call Aranyaka, he has super sensory instructions of hermit. The hermit is a person who will live in a forest. He has a great knowledge. He has a great knowledge about the Veda. And he will teach to the next generation or the people who want to learn these Vedas. Yes, students. Among these 4 Veda, Rig Veda I told you is the earliest Veda. is a beginning Veda. But if you come to the Rig Veda has 128 suktas. The suktas we can call as prayer songs. These suktas are the prayer songs also made as group. There are 10 mandalas. They are grouped as 10 mandalas. They belongs to, which means these Rigvedic people belongs to Indo-European family. That is why I told you they are Aryans. And these Rigvedic people are Aryans. They lived in Afghanistan, particularly in the Kush mountain of Afghanistan. But when the rivers dries up, they given up this territory or in the Kush mountain of Afghanistan, they moved to Doab region of Ganga and even Yamuna river. The Doab region is nothing but the fertile alluvium plains of the Ganga or the fertile alluvium soils are going to call Yamuna rivers. There they were settled down. Later on, even they were settled down at Kashmir and even at the place going to call Sindh in the northern region of India or the greater part of India. Dear students, let us go and study about these Rigvedic people, social condition, religious condition, and even going to call about their economical life. If we come about a society, the Aryan society which was consisted of the three class people. Who are the three class people were there? One I called aristocracy. They were the rich people. They were royal people. The another community people I can call them as priestly class. And the third community people we can call as common people. Who they were? They were the common people. They were the ordinary people. So that is why I told you the Aryan community, the Aryan society, which consists of aristocracy, priestly class, and even going to call common people. If you go and study about the Rig Veda, in the Purusha Shuta of 10th mandala of Rig Veda says, there is a god called Adi Purusha. Who was a god? They believed in Adi Purusha. So who are going to call Adi Purusha? He created the people, and those people were called as Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra. How they were created? They believed that. The Aryans believed that. The Vedic people believed that. Who are going to call Adi Purusha? He gave a life to the people from his mouth. Whom he given the life through his mouth, they called as Brahmana. And they can perform the rituals and they can study. The another community people, the another kind of people whom we call Kshatriyas, it is believed that they were born from the shoulder of who are going to call Adi Purusha. And even they believe that. Who are going to call the Vyasa? The Vyasa was born from the stomach. And the lowest community, whom we call the Shudras, it is believed they were born from the tithe of Adi Purusha. That is why one who was born from the tithe, they have to physically have to serve for the three kinds of people, may be called Brahmana, they have to Kshatriya, and even for the Vaishyas. Who have to serve? The Shudra have to serve to whom? Brahmana, Kshatriya, and even to call Vaishyas. Then who these the Shudra Varna people? Actually, if we come that one, the Shudra Varna people were the tribal community people. They were called as Dashus tribal community, Pani tribal community, and even we can call as Dasha tribal community people. These Dashus, Pani and Dasha tribal community people was made as a slave to the Aryans. Now let us go and study about economic condition of this Rigvedic period. As I told you early, Rigvedic people also depends upon animal husbandry and even they depend upon agriculture. Now hunting also common, but the main occupation was animal husbandry and agriculture. These Rigvedic people were considered the cow, horses, camel, sheep, the cultivable land as their wealth. And they used to till the land. To till the land, they were using the cattle. To lift the water, they use the cattle. And to carry the goods from one place to another place, they use the carts. They use the carts. To pull the carts, they use the cattle. Not only to plow the land, not only to lift the water, not only to pull the vehicle, even they use the cattle for milk and meat. Apart from this, the people of Rigvedic, they followed the professions like pottery making. There were the craftsmen, there were the weavers, and even we can find there were carpenters. But there are local rich tribal community people who are well known for agriculture. They were none other called Pani. Who were called Pani? The local rich tribal community people who used to do agriculture, and they were called as Pani. The cultivable land they were called as Kshetra. The cultivation they used to call as Krishi. The cultivable land what you called as Kshetra. The cultivation what they called as Krishi. And also they were used to depend upon irrigation. They had a irrigated land belonging to Aligrama of Swat Valley. They use stone pulley with wood cups to lift the water from the well. To carry, to plow the lands, they were used oxen. Mainly they were growing the crops called barley. They were called as Yava. Yava is nothing but barley. Dear students, let us go and study about the political system or the political situation of Rigvedic period. Even though I told you they were the tribal community people, they were lived in a community. What do you mean community? The group of people living together you called as family. Father, mother, children, grandpa, grandma. They living together we call as family. Number of families living together we call as community. The community we call as society. The society which was called as village. Or they called as grama. To look after this community, to look after this village, they elected a leader. And the person, the leader, they called as Raja or they were called as Rajan. Rajan was the head of the tribal community people and he was elected hereditary basis. There were the families who ruled this Rigvedic period means we called as Trukshi. The Trukshi of Puru clan, the another community people we called as Sudas of Bharat clan. They were ruled Rigvedic society. But these Rigvedic people, now and then, they used to fight with Aryans and non-Aryans. Who is an Aryan? Who is a non-Aryan? Aryan means who came from other country and settled in our country. Maybe, as we studied, they came from the Russian territory, the Ural mountain of Russian territory, and also non-Aryans means who are the local people, who are local tribal people who born and brought up in India. Between them there were conflicts. That is I told you, the conflicts was took place between Aryans and non-Aryans. To look after administration, the responsibility of the king was giving the protection to the people. To help the king, he was assisted by Sabha and Samiti. And also to fight against the enemy, they appointed soldier. The soldier they called as Yodha. What do you call the soldier? Soldier was called as Yodha. Dear students, let us come and study about the religious condition of Rigvedic period, the religious system of Rigvedic period. It's very important. As I told you, they used to perform yaga and even they used to perform yajnas. There are two reasons for performing the yajnas. Why they were performing yajnas means, one, to get good harvesting. If you want to get the good harvesting, they are supposed to get a good rainfall. To get the rainfall and to get a good harvesting, they used to perform the yajnas. The another reason they used to perform yajnas was to defeat their enemies. Whom I call the enemies? As I told you, the local people who were there, the local tribal people who were there, we call them as Dashus, or Dasa, or we call Pani. Who is to fight on them? The Aryans is to fight, which means there was a conflict between Aryans with non-Aryans. That is why to victory over the non-Aryans, to victory over the Dashus, they want to perform yajnas. For these two reasons, they were performed yajnas. The yajna was called as Hotur. What do you call the yajna? Yajna was called as Hotur. And also, they were reciting the slokas. They were saying the mantras. But they had the habit consuming of soma. Soma is nothing but some kind of alcohol. some kind of drinks they used to drink, that is called as Soma. But these Rigvedic people used to worship fire, we called as Agni. But these Rigvedic people, they are not much known about Lord Vishnu or incarnation of Lord Vishnu. But these people were worshipped Lord Indra, and even they worshipped Rudra. Rudra is nothing but going to call Lord Shiva. They believed Lord Indra brings a rainfall, and he will give the victory when you fight against the enemy. Whom they consider as the enemy? They consider the local tribal people, maybe a Dashus, a Dasa, or they call Pani. To get a victory on this Dashus, a Dasa, or even what they call the Pani, they used to pray Lord Indra. And even they were praying Lord Rudra. Rudra also called as Lord Shiva. So far we have discussed about the early Vedic period, that is nothing but to call Rigvedic period. Now let us go and study about the post-Vedic period. The post-Vedic period we bring into three. Which are the post-Vedic period? We call as Samaveda, Yajurveda, Atharva Veda. If we come the post-Vedic period, Samaveda, Yajurveda and Atharva Veda, these three Vedas were conducted. Dear students, three priests conducted three different types of yajnas. Which were three priests were conducted different types of yajnas were called as Samaveda, Yajurveda and Atharva Veda. If we come to Samaveda, we're going to call the Saman, or we called as Udgatri. Used to say the sloka, are going to call mantra. Used to sing, and whatever the slokas or the mantras he was singing, that was called as Samaveda. Next one to call Yajurveda, Advaryu. He used to recite the Yajus, are going to call Sutras. Which one he was recited as a Sutras, that was called as Yajurveda. But there are two types of text we can see in Yajurveda. One we called as black, nothing what we call Krishna. Another one we call as white, we called as Sukla. Black are going to call Krishna, the way of reciting the mantras, and also as commentary. About that one, there is explanation. They used to write, there will be a mantras, there may be a slokas, but for that they used to give explanations. That explanations will be in black or Krishna. The another text we can see, that is going to call white, or we call as Sukla. If we come to the Sukla, it has mantras. Of course, it has mantras, but there is no explanations for it. That is, I told you, there are two types of texts we can call. One I told you as black or Krishna. Another one I told you white, or you call as Shukla. The third one we can see, that is Atharva Veda. Atharvan we called as Angrian, is a priest of Agni, is a priest of fire. It takes much from 10th mandala of Rigveda. But this Atharva Veda, it is in explanation manner, it is in a prose manner. It was like a story type, but it is used in the language of Brahmana, you called as Aranyakas. Dear students, now let us go and study about this post-Vedic people social condition, and even we will discuss about economical condition and what they believed in also. First one, as we studied in the Rigvedic period, even if you come in the post-Vedic period also, there were Brahmana, there were Kshatriya, there were Vaishya, and there were the Shudras. As we studied Purusha Sukta, he says very clearly, this Brahmana was born from the mouth, Kshatriya was born from the shoulder, of course the Vaishya who was born from the stomach, and the Shudra they believed, of course he was born from the tithe. Of course, the same concept is going on. But here we can say Brahmana is to perform the rituals and is considered as highest class. The Kshatriya is to protect the country. He can be a Rajan or he can be a soldier. Who are going to call the Vaishya? He is supposed to fill the stomach. That is why he is supposed to be a trader or a merchant who can fulfill the food. And the Shudra, of course, he considers the lowest community, and we call him as untouchable. He is supposed to physically have to serve for the Brahmana, Kshatriya, and even to the Vaishya. That is why he is supposed to be a goldsmith, a blacksmith, or it may be a cobbler. So this kind of work is given to whom? Shudra. So the Shudras were not allowed to perform any yagas or yajnas. That is why these Shudras were considered as untouchable. But these Shudras are untouchable. What has to do? They have to go house by house, they have to collect the food. Of course, the Shudras were tribal community people. They have to go house by house, they have to collect the food. And that food they have to take, and that food they have to have. That is why the food collecting tribal community people they called as Nishada, and these tribal community people also called as Chandala. The Chandala and Nishada, they were not considered as a human being. They were treated equal to the beast, I'm going to call animal. Dear students, during the time of post-Vedic period, they were not respected the woman. They considered woman as embodiment of lies. Some supernatural power, because of some more supernatural imaginations, the woman was born. But they believed that one, there is no value for the woman and the society. But there was dowry system during the Atharva Vedic period. In the society, there were polygamy was in practice. What do you mean polygamy? Man used to marry more than one wife. So the polygamy was common among the rich people or in the powerful families. But in the post-Vedic period, they were allowed, widow can remarry. Let us come and study about the economic system of post-Vedic period, my students. If we come about a post-Vedic period, Aryans moving from Sindhu river area to Ganga river area. Why they moved from Sindhu river area to Ganga river area? Because some of the rivers or the tributaries of the river Sindhu were dried up. As a result, the people who were lived on the river bank of Sindhu, they moved to the Ganga river area. So when they move from one place to the another place, or from one river bank to the another river bank, they used to destroy the forest, and they'll set the fire to the forest, they'll burn off. In such a way, they clean the forest. After cleaning the forest, they plow the land. Of course, they sow the seeds, they protect the crop, and they get the harvesting. They started the agriculture. To cut this forest, they were used iron axes. So with the iron axe, they used to chop the trees. If you go and study the Atharva Veda, it says very clearly, 6 or 8 oxen were drawn the plowing. If you go to Yajur Veda says, there are 12 oxen were drawn the plowing machine. So totally we can come to know one thing. Maybe from Atharva Veda or Yajur Veda, both are trying to convince the only one thing. They use the ox to plow the land. Of course, the people of post-Vedic period, they were dependent upon agriculture. Not only agriculture, even they used to go for hunting. But their main occupation was, along with the agriculture and hunting, animal husbandry. What do you mean animal husbandry? Rearing the domestic animal for the sake of milk and even for the meat. That we call rearing the animal, we called as animal husbandry. And during the post-Vedic period, the speciality of the post-Vedic period was business. The post-Vedic people were called Vyartas, which means outsiders. The Vyatras are called as outsiders, means they can buy or they sell the goods. Not only they buy or sell the goods, are going to call agricultural goods, even they'll buy or sell the domestic animals. To transport these goods, they were used oxen. Dear students, so far we have learned about the early Veda we called Rig Veda, and the post Vedas we called as Samveda, Yajur Veda and Atharvana Veda. Can you name the 4 Vedas? Yes, Rig Veda, Samveda, Yajur Veda and Atharvana Veda. And even these early Vedic and later Vedic people, they used to worship the God. Particularly, they worship the nature. Other than that, these Vedic people we are divided into Varna. Name the 4 Varnas of Vedic people. The Vedic people we are divided into Brahmana, Kshatriya, Shudra and even to call Vaishya. Name the 2 periods of going to call Vedic period. As I told you, early Vedic period or I called as Rig Vedic period. Then next I told you, later Vedic period or we called as post-Vedic periods. Then who composed the Veda? As we discussed. Okay, who composed the Veda? Aryans compiled the Veda. Then which one are used to transport the goods and even what to call the agriculture produce from one place to another place or during the time of trade also? Yes, my students. Oxen was used. Let me meet you in another class. Students, I am Jerome. I am working as assistant master in St. Joseph's High School, a unit Archdiocese Board of Education, that is in Bangalore. I'll meet you in another class. Till that, have a nice day. Thank you.